Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 381 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels coming to you from beautiful Sandusky, Ohio. We got up to about 20 degrees Celsius today. Really nice day to get out for about a 8 or 9 kilometer walk today. And we're going to be talking about round two of the 2025 fixture here today. And I'm thrilled that you're checking out the episode. Now, don't forget that if you are interested in having your local footy club getting a shout out during an upcoming episode, something I have not done for a few episodes, but I'm going to get back into it with this one. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you have a most memorable game, one that you're never going to forget, this is the game that you will take with you until you start to, you cannot remember it ever again later on in life. That sounded really bad, but we're going to leave it there anyway. This is one you're going to remember forever. It's that game that you'll reflect on. You're going to look back fondly, hopefully fondly. Maybe it was a heartbreaking loss. I'd love to help you tell that story because it's maybe a game other people have the same memory on. Maybe it was a game when you were playing in the Colts and you kicked the game-winning goal against somebody. I'd love to be able to tell your story. So reach out to me over on my socials. You can find all of those at my website at ayankonthefooty.com. Now, I had a really interesting suggestion from a listener who lives here in the United States, in the state of New York. He's a huge Buffalo Bills fan, and he's just really started to follow footy. And he was, as a new fan, asking me, which players he should be paying attention to when he's watching the games. Because again, there's, for somebody who's new to the game, and I remember this when I started watching the game back in 2016, there's a lot of activity going on around on the ground. Okay, there's people everywhere. When I have new people watch the game with me on rare occasion, they look at it like as though there's some sort of confusion going on with just the sheer volume of people that are on the ground. But I thought, maybe just not the best players necessarily, and maybe not the Lockie Neals and the Patrick Cripps and the Dacos brothers, and you could certainly include them on there. But I thought, what about discussing the most interesting players in the competition, the ones that have the most unique stories? Okay. Um, whether it be a player who, has come here from another country, Connor McKenna, who's won, premiership with Brisbane, then also won a Gaelic football championship back in Ireland. And somebody mentioned that one to me today, and I thought that was a great idea. So I'm going to definitely include him there on that list as well. But I put together a list of about 5 or 6 players on each club, but there may be some that I'm missing as well. So if you've got somebody that you think should be on that list of one of the most interesting players in the comp, maybe they're on your team, maybe they're on your rival's team, maybe they're a player that you wish was on your team, drop me a note on one of my socials. You can reach out to me on my website, ayankonthefooty.com. You can leave me a message there. You can shoot me a message on Facebook, on X. You can email me at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. I would love to include that player. Maybe tell me a little bit about why that person is special in your mind. What makes them a very interesting person? Okay. Now, I just in case you haven't listened to the most recent episode, I do want to mention this again, and I'm still stunned by this. I'm amazed by the however this recognition came about. Website called millionpodcast.com, and they do like PR work and marketing and that sort of thing. They listed their top 100, and I think there were only 95 on the list. Their top 100 AFL podcasts or football podcasts, I think it was, in Australia. Now, they put out a list of their top sport podcasts in Australia, and I was number 17 on that list. Was shocked by that. This past week, I came in at number 12 in terms of the top football podcast in Australia. I'm humbled by that. I don't know the criteria, but I'll take it. Okay. Any advertising is good advertising. So I appreciate them, putting me on that list with so many phenomenal shows. And there are great shows that I listen to, great footy podcasts I listen to that did not make that list, and I think they should be there. But I was fortunate enough to have, I believe, 10 of my preview episodes this year were with people involved in 10 or 11 of the shows that were on that list. And these people just do a phenomenal job. They put forth a ton of effort to promote their clubs. And these were all club specific podcasts, people who are, well, there's one that's kind of a more general one, but it's one that actually does one mainly on the Chicago Bears, but he's also a huge Hawthorne fan. But I'm just thankful to have been included on that list. And if you've not checked out my podcast, I'm glad you found this episode. I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll go back and look at some of the older episodes in the catalog. I've got hundreds of interviews in there that I've done over the years. Um, and just absolutely love sharing people's stories about the game. Now, before we dive into the tips for this week, I did want to cover this week's club of the episode, and they are the Barossa District Bulldogs from the Barossa Light and Gawler Football Association. Now, this club was formed back in 1979 when the Williamstown Rovers and the Lyndoch football clubs combined. Um, this year, the club is moving into a completely new facility in Lyndoch, and my mate Mick Aussie from MickAussie.tv, with his ingenious planning and the purchase of a safety vest, managed to scoop the news media in the area because he and one of his buddies actually did a video tour of this entire new facility. And you can find all of this stuff over on Mick's socials at Mick Aussie on X, or Mick Aussie on Facebook. And I believe he even has these up on his website as well, MickAussie.tv. And what's really interesting is, if you're not aware of this already, this ground is also going to be hosting 2 games during Gather Round this year. And I think when they drew up the fixture, they put these games together, they thought, okay, these are good ones to send to this smaller ground. But I think by the time round 5 rolls around, they might be going, why did we send these 2 games here? We might end up with a bigger crowd if they went somewhere else, because, and again, maybe the first one, maybe not so much, but I think these are 2 clubs that are going to both be pointing in the right direction at that point in time. North Melbourne facing off against Gold Coast, and Fremantle facing off against Richmond. And let's be honest, folks, if you tipped Richmond last week to beat Carlton, I tip my cap to you. Pick a cap over there, any cap. I'll tip it to you, because that would have been impressive. Now, again, last year, I think round 5, I tipped Richmond to beat the Swans, and they did. I did not tip them to beat Carlton, but it was an impressive win on their part, okay? And I want to wish the Barossa District Bulldogs the absolute best this year at their new ground. I wish them the absolute best of luck in hosting these 2 games during Gather Round. It's a fantastic opportunity for them. Check out their website. The link for that will be in the show notes, along with Mick Aussie's website to check out as well. And hope you'll go ahead and take a look at his recordings and his videos visiting these areas. Now, a couple news items that I wanted to touch on here. First of all, I didn't realize that Paddy Dangerfield was going to be stepping down as the head of the AFL Players Association, but he's been replaced by Darcy Moore. Maybe you can provide me with some insight on this, because I've not known that he was considering stepping down. And I wonder, and I'm speculating here, did this have anything to do with him going on the record, basically making arguments that maybe the league should consider shortening the quarters of games? Was that an unpopular enough decision that he felt like, okay, the hell with this. I don't want to have to deal with any more flack from this. I want to just concentrate on playing my game. I don't know. I think that I think is, possibly what happened. But again, I'm not positive on that. But maybe he just thought it's time. It's one less thing that he wants to have on his plate. Gives him more time to go fishing. I did see that the Tasmania Devils have a new mascot. It's a little scary looking. It's an interesting looking devil. And I read an article about it that I'm not sure, but this just sounds to me a little bit like a Stephen King novel, quite frankly. I'm expecting a little paper boat to float down a sewer drain and a clown wanting to hand it back to him or something like that. But this mascot's costume is made out of recycled school uniforms. Is that, and I don't know, is that creepy? I don't know. I guess they're repurposing that, but it just, that sounds I don't know. That just sounds a little odd. I mean, I appreciate, recycling things and reusing things. That's great. Reduce, recycle, reuse, all that sort of thing. It just sounds a little odd. And knowing just, it's just kind of an interesting decision to do that. Now, I guess that this new mascot's name is Rumman, Rum apostrophe UN, and in Tasmanian slang, that's a word for an odd or eccentric person, a scallywag, or somebody who's cheeky. Would a scallywag wear discarded school uniforms that were cut up into pieces? I don't know. When I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's unique, but I wasn't sure really what to make of it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I get into the tips, and this is one that, it's I think it has a lot of you really pissed off as well. I'm just going to say, the Jack Scrimshaw, the Tom Lynch suspensions, they were upheld. I'm okay with that. I think both of them got a game. Yeah, I've got Lynch on my fantasy team. Would have been nice to have him in there this week, but I'll have to make do without him, along with Stephen May. But I'm just flabbergasted by the decision to suspend Jackson Archer for 3 games. Yeah, I've got to ask a serious question, and I don't know how to ask this other than to just ask it. What in the hell was he supposed to do? Please tell me, okay? Those of you who are listening, most of you have played the game. I've never played the game. I've not seen a game in person. I've watched it on television. I watched this happen live. What in the hell was he supposed to do? I got to ask a question. When are they going to start considering suspending a player like Luke Cleary in this situation for going headfirst into the ball in a situation like that? And I heard David King talking about it. The collision came very late, and he talked about, Danny Frawley, the late great Danny Frawley, mentioning, never put your head somewhere where your bum can go just as well. So when you saw Archer go down, I thought he blew out a knee. Was Luke Cleary going to get off scot-free for that? Was there going to be no adjudication against him for taking out Archer's knee had his knee actually been torn in that situation? Now, I sat here with the stopwatch on my phone, and I watched that a couple of times, and I tried to time it. The average time that I came up with was 0.49 seconds. And I ask again, what in the hell was Archer supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? He doesn't have the distance to slide into him. Should I don't know, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should turn it into like a baseball situation where, like a base runner has to slide into a base. Maybe you slide into him. Let's try something different here. Let him go back to wearing the metal-studded cleats. Slide into the guy. Pick a couple chunks out of him. Then maybe he won't be putting his head in there. Luke Beveridge said, it was an accident. It happened. It was a football play. He shouldn't be punished for it. This tribunal stuff has gotten the hell out of hand. I understand the issue of concussions. I get it. But you're punishing the player who had 0.49 seconds to react. You're punishing him for the other player going in head first. You're punishing him for that. And quite frankly, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. He should be playing this week. Maybe you sit him out a week because of the concussion. Maybe you say you get to come back in when the concussed player is available again. But 3 games for 0.49 seconds? You've lost the damn plot, Tribunal. You've lost the plot. You're about to lose your game. You're about to lose your game. You're starting to look an awful lot like the NFL, where they might as well put a goddamn dress on the quarterbacks, because if you even look at them funny, personal foul, roughing the passer. I'm sorry, this is gone beyond asinine. It's asa 10. It might even be asa 11 for all I know. You can't punish that young man for a half second. when the other player went in head first at the end. He dove in after the ball. He made the decision to do that. I would love to see the tribunal get out there and try to stop in half a second. Go running at full speed with your cleats on. Put cleats on so you can grip the grass. Go try to stop in 0.49 seconds. Tell me how the hell it works for you. Because it's absolutely ridiculous. That young man should be playing football this weekend. I'm sorry. And I'm frustrated with this. I don't want to see people get injured, but he could have just as easily been injured with Cleary taking out his knees. And it came damn close to happening. And you know what? He could have blown out his ACL, missed the entire 25 season, come back healthy next year, be suspended the first 3 games for the 2026 fixture because the tribunal is completely screwed up in the head. I said it. Okay? Maybe you think I'm wrong. That's okay. Maybe you think I'm wrong. But I'll tell you what. This is ridiculous. You cannot adjudicate this when you slow it down and you watch it at the speed of how I am talking right now. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. You got to watch it at full speed. You got to go with it at full speed. And I'll finish it and I'll say it one more time before I move on. What in the hell was he supposed to do? That's it. I'm done talking about it. So let's look at the games for this week. Let's find our opportunities for somebody to get suspended this week. Because I'm sure it's going to happen. I'm going to go back to what I'd said last year, and this is not to say that Jackson Archer was going to be a Brownlow candidate. But with the way that they have become so goddamn ticky-tack with regards to penalizing bumps, what they are, they're bumps. You're losing out on a tremendous number of plays. I think I did an episode on this, or maybe it was a blog episode or a blog post on redefining what the term best and fairest means. Okay? That maybe with the way the game is being adjudicated today, that if a player gets suspended, that they lose the same number of Brownlow votes that they've been awarded for the number of games that they've been suspended. So if they got a 2-game suspension, maybe they earn 28 Brownlow votes during the season. They lose 2 of them. They drop down to 26, but they're still eligible. Because the way they're adjudicating it right now, you're going to have you could find yourself having some guy that played 9 games, had 2 great games, got 6 votes there, picked up a couple votes here and there, ended up maybe 10 votes on the season. He's going to win the Brownlow because you've suspended everybody else in the league. Okay, I wasn't quite done yet. All right, so let's look at the first game for this week. Okay, we've got Carlton and the Hawks facing off against one another. I vividly remember people talking about the Hawks possibly taking a bit of a step backwards this year because maybe the rest of the league had figured them out. Maybe they still will. So far, it's not the case. They've looked really, really good these first 2 weeks that they've played. Carlton looked absolutely rudderless last week. They looked lost. They got out to a lead. They couldn't hold on to it. Okay. Youth beat experience here. Okay. Youth beat experience. It reminded me, kind of reminded me of the inverse, the upside down from Stranger Things of a conversation that Sean Penn and Robert Duvall had in their police car in the movie Colors, regarding the bull. If you've seen the movie, you may remember the scene, but the young bull did well here in this situation. I think Carlton's going to lose again this week. I think they're completely rudderless right now. Relying on young Mr. Mackay to do things for them is not working out at this moment in time. I'm going with Hawthorn to win this one by 13 points. And then we head to the MCG with the Magpies facing off against the Footscray Bulldogs this week. Both of them got big wins last week, but I think at this point the Pies are a stronger side than last week's foes, North Melbourne. Now, do I think they're going to be that way at the end of the season? No, I don't, because I did not have Collingwood in the finals, and I do have North Melbourne in the 8th spot this year. So I still think North Melbourne is going to end up in the 8 and Collingwood not there. I could be wrong. Okay. Still quite a few injuries for the doggies this week, so I'm going to go with the Pies to get their second win of the year, and get themselves working towards a spot in the eight that I will then be wrong about. But I've got the Pies winning this one by 2.5 goals. Okay. And then we got Essendon hosting Adelaide. The Crows looked phenomenal last week, throttling the Saints. I mean, and Mick Aussie, I know you were there, buddy. I saw your photos at the game. I'm so thrilled that you got to see that game in person, with your mates, and I know you had a wonderful time. The Bombers did score quite well last week, but they also gave up a ton of points to Hawthorn. Now, I think the resurgence continues. Okay, I put them in the eight last year. I think I put them back there this year. I just think this is a side that's got a lot of talent. If it comes together, they could be dangerous. I've got Adelaide winning this one on the road by 9 points. Okay, and then we head back to the Adelaide Oval for Port Adelaide coming home to try to wash the bad taste of that drubbing at the Magpies out of their mouths. Now, I think when the Powers saw this fixture, they looked at the fixture here and they saw, oh, Richmond round two, and they said, shh, we're gonna put these 4 points on the ladder for us. We're gonna win this one. They're gonna put it in the quiet. We're gonna be quietly confident about these 4 points. Well, after last week, not so fast. Um, the Tigers, they shocked the footy world last week. It was an impressive win. It was that youthful exuberance coming back from 4+ goals down to knock off Carlton. And a lot of people have Carlton playing finals. Can they do it on the road? Why the hell not? What have they got to lose? You still got quite a few veterans on that club that have got at least one, if not two, maybe three premiership medals hanging up at home somewhere. You got a lot of youngsters, very high draft picks that have come into this side this year who don't know any different and might as well say, screw it. Let's just go out and win this one. Now, I don't think it's going to happen this week, though. I think Port Adelaide rights the ship. I think that they figure out that, you know what, we're much better than we showed last week. They've got to be, don't they? They've got to be better than they showed last week because they looked awful last week. Just god awful. Okay. I think that, you know, there's a rumor out there that I just started that, after the game, they told Kenny Hinckley that, that the club's flight back to Adelaide was going to be flying out of Avalon while everybody else headed to the other airport, hoping that he'd get lost. Um, but I'm going Port to win this one by a close margin, only by 7 points. Okay. I think Richmond's going to give them everything they've got, and it's going to be a fun game to watch. Um, and let's just put it this way: Richmond's going to be a fun club to watch this year because of these youngsters. And are they going to take their lumps sometime this year? Sure. They're going to get thumped pretty hard by a couple of clubs this year. They're probably going to have a couple of 50, 60 point losses this year. Okay. I mean, I know one club I hope just absolutely destroys them. That one, of course. But there's still going to be a lot of fun to watch as these kids figure things out as they go along. And as I've said to, a few Richmond supporters, that glass is half full and there's a little bit of a drippy in that faucet that's starting to fill it up a little bit more. Okay. So I think Port's going to rebound. I think, Tom Lynch is going to be out for um, Richmond, as I mentioned in the opening part there. Um, so I'm going with Port Adelaide to win this one. And now we got St. Kilda hosting Geelong up at Marvel. The Saints took it on the chin down at the Adelaide Oval. The Cats, with the exception of about a 10-minute chunk of time when they seemingly forgot what the football looked like during the third quarter against Fremantle last week, they just absolutely blitzed a very good Fremantle club. I think the Cats get their second win on the row. I think they're going to win this one by 14 points. They've got a few injuries that are out there that are a little worrisome. But, I think it's going to be interesting to watch Sam DeConey going up against Rowan Marshall in the ruck. Marshall, I think, is a much stronger ruckman, but both of them move around the ground very well. It's just going to be a lot of fun to watch this one and see what happens with this one. Okay. But I got the Cats winning this one by 14. And then we head up to Brisbane. Okay. And Brisbane's hosting West Coast. And West Coast did not look good last week against the Gold Coast Suns. And I just, I think that um, the Gold Coast Suns are, they're going to be without. Well, we'll get to Gold Coast next week because they're off this week. But they lost Charlie Ballard to a knee injury, a rather innocuous knee injury. Just came down on it wrong. It can happen that easily. So going back to Jackson Archer, it could happen just that difficultly as well. I just made up a new word. Um, but like I said, I think this could be ugly. But I think West Coast is going to play a little better than they did last week. I mean, they've got to, don't they? They've got to show something here. I still think Brisbane's going to win it by about 5 goals, but I think West Coast is going to make it a more interesting game than the one they did last week. Okay, and they're gonna get their home fans interested in coming to see them play next time they play at home. Then, okay, so I'm going with Brisbane to win by 30. And we got North Melbourne hosting Melbourne. And can the Roos slow down an opponent's offense? I mean, they struggled with that last week. They really did. They struggled to stop their opponent last week. And that's it's a club that I think is going to score some points this year, but they've got to learn how to stop other teams. Okay. The Bulldogs were depleted, yet they still figured a way to put 100 plus points on the board. And North Melbourne scored a lot of points themselves, but they've got to get some more stoppages inside 50. They've got to turn more goals into behinds, or they've got to prevent goals from being kicked. I think it could be a really good matchup. No Stephen May due to the larynx injury, the throat injury. So Nick Larkey might have himself a shot at getting another bag of goals here, which, to quote a great podcaster, bags, 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 bags. Right, Peps? A lot of bags there. Got to have 6, right? If I'm not mistaken, for a bag. Um, I am going to go with the Roos for the second week in a row to win this one. I've got North winning this one by 9 points. I remember I put them in the 8. They've got to start winning some games here. So I have to start tipping them in games that I think are winnable. I think this is a winnable game for them. And then the last game of the round, we've got Fremantle heading back home for their home opener against Sydney. And the question is, if Sydney goes 0-3, are they going to be able to pull off a Brisbane-esque recovery? They've got some significant injuries in Sydney right now. They really do. If they drop this game, they're going to be 0-3. I don't know if they're going to be able to bounce back. I did not have them in my 8 this year. I thought the grand final hangover was going to be too rough on them. I think the Dockers get back on track. I think the Dockers are a much better side than they showed for 3/4 of the game in Geelong. I've got the Dockers winning this one by 3 goals against Sydney. And Sydney's going to drop to 0-3. And it's now going to be panic time a little bit. Yeah, I wonder, have they figured out their forward structure? I don't know. I'm still waiting on Logan McDonald to come back, which could solve a lot of problems. Okay. So there's my tips for the week. You'll have to let me know what you think. I went 6-3 last week. Okay. I'm going to pull up I think I've got my list right here from last week. I got the Blues game wrong. I got the North game wrong. And I got the Port Adelaide game wrong. I picked Port to beat Collingwood last week. Can you believe it? Yeah. So, uh, yep. I went 6-3 last week. If I win 6 games this week, that's a good thing. Again, this is purely for entertainment purposes only. Do not place a wager based upon anything that I say because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. So this is purely for fun. It's speculation. Do not place a bet on my account. I've never placed a bet on anything in my life. I've never been into a casino in my life. I guess that means I'm really, really boring. Okay, so remember, folks, you can find everything about the podcast over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll consider signing up on the mailing list there. If you enjoy the show, I hope you'll tell your friends about it. Share a link. Send a link to the podcast to your friends. Put it out. If you've got a mailing list of like-minded footy friends or that sort of thing, drop it into some DMs and that sort of thing. That word of mouth would be really, really helpful. If you really like the show and you want to leave a review, that would be very helpful as well. You can do that right on my website. There's a review button up at the top there. If you want to help it out by clicking on that Buy Me a Coffee button, you can do that as well. I've had a couple people who've done that this week, and I thank you so much for that. You can leave a voicemail over there. Again, if you got an idea on a player who you think are amongst the most interesting in the league, I do hope you'll reach out to me and share that information as well. Folks, look out for one another. Check up on your friends, make sure that they're okay. All right. Get out and have that coffee. If you need to speak to somebody, please don't hesitate to do that. The world's a much better place with you in it. I've struggled for the last several months, and I'm coming out the other side pretty good. This week, I averaged walking almost 7 miles a day, which is about 11 and a half or 12 kilometers a day for on average for this past week. Not quite as far today. I think I only got about 10 kilometers in today, but I'm feeling pretty good. Um, just would like the weather to kind of stabilize. We're up to about 70 degrees Fahrenheit today, about 20 degrees Celsius. We're going to be back down to 4 degrees Celsius in about a week. It's a roller coaster here right now because we're waiting on the weather patterns to shift permanently there. So, folks, again, check out everything on my website. Please get subscribed over there. Give me a follow on my socials. All right. Tell your friends about the podcast. It'd be a huge help. And as always, may your dribble kick never hit the post. This has been episode 381 of the podcast. I'll talk to you soon. Give me a follow at yank_on. Reach out to me at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com or on my other socials, ayankonthefooty.com, is where you can find all of that. Subscribe to the podcast over on YouTube as well. I'm up to 250 subscribers on YouTube. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you want to subscribe over there too, that would be a huge help. You can check out the show there as well. I'm starting to do a little bit more work with the video over there. And this whole thing about the most interesting players and such, I plan on, plugging images and that sort of thing in there as well with that. And so that's going to kind of be a little bit of a labor of love process that I'm going to be doing there with that. So folks, until next time, cheers and goodbye.